Hey guys, this is Ryan from El Topoloco giving you guys another deck profile. I've been testing out this new red Goku from set 16, and it's been
pretty, pretty good.
I've only lost once on untap so far out of maybe 15-ish matches, so it's been doing very, very well against many, many decks. And in fact, I'm actually winning some games with like 7 or 8 life, so it's a very, very powerful leader for what it does. I recommend you guys test it out. It's very, very fun to play too. It's nice because it does have some linear gameplay lines of play to do each turn, but it doesn't have to do that. There are some choices that you can make, so you can adjust it, but you do have a typical game plan you are approaching every single turn if you want to do it that way as well. So let's look at the deck profile. First, we're going to start off this leader. We are going to be running a 60 card deck because this leader will mill itself a lot. And I do want to make sure that I will not get milled out, especially if you're playing really long control matches like Hachiak, or if you're playing against like Cooler Miller or something like that. It makes it a lot harder to get milled out if you're playing 60 cards. And actually, since this mills itself so well and so frequently, 60 cards doesn't feel like a hinder at all. But of course, you could always cut it down if you want. But let's look at the leader. The permanent on both sides basically says you cannot send cards from the drop to the warp. So there is no overwhelm. There are no draw apes, but there are still some things you can do with the drop. On the front side, it's a 10k leader, and you can actually draw on the very first turn. Now the draw is not going to be a +1. What the draw is basically it's an activate main. You burst 3, and then you are going to draw 1, and then you take any card from your hand and put it into the drop area. So turn 1, you're already going to have 4 in the drop, and you really want to get as many cards in the drop because you will want to activate its Sparking 20 ability later in the game. And there are a lot of cards in this deck that require Sparking, so you do want to get a bunch of cards in the drop as soon as possible. He also does draw on the attack. So if you go second, you will be seeing 2 cards, but only plusing 1 card in your hand. His awaken is at 4 or less life, so it is nice to have like a nice typical awaken. But usually I'm awakening a lot of times at 7 or 8 life, and it's nice because it's not one of those leaders that if you awaken early that you have to take down to like 5 life or 4 life. You stay at whatever life you are awakened at, kind of like Soul Striker reboot. Um, and the other alt awaken is when you have 7 or more Universe 7 cards in your drop area. So that's going to be very easy to do with the burst effect and also discarding. So you got to kind of choose a little bit with the discarding, but the burst is a little bit of RNG factor. But usually you could awaken turn 2, almost always turn 3. Nice thing about this leader is you could really be aggressive and awaken turn 2 if you really want to put a lot of that pressure early. But a lot of times you can take your time. I've awakened like even turn 4 sometimes just so I can get the most out of my energy later in the game, depending on how the game state was. The backside of the leader, same permanent. Um, and he does have a draw, but the draw is not on the attack. It's an activate main, and it's not a burst anymore. It's an optional self mill, essentially. You draw 1, and then you could choose up to 3 cards to put in the drop area. So if you feel like your deck's getting a little too low, or if you're playing against like a mill deck or something, you really don't have to burst anymore. And he does have one more ability, which is a Sparking 20, and this ability almost wins you the game every single time whenever you do use it. It's Sparking 20. You choose any Universe 7, no restrictions about anything else. Maybe it has to be red. I forget exactly, but you get to choose any Universe 7s, put it to your hand, and then basically you pick out your win con, and we'll see a bunch of different win cons that we could do. But once you use that Sparking 20 ability, it's done for the game. The nice thing about this leader is you can draw a lot on your Awaken turn. So you're going to filter 1 with a Burst 3, see what you want to keep and discard whatever you have to. You're going to swing, get the draw from the swing, and then awaken, get the draw, untap 1 from that. And then finally, after the battle's over, you can then use the activate main to draw again. So you do want to swing with this leader if you can before you awaken. But let's look at the deck profile. First, let's look at our one drops. These are going to be our turn one plays. These are the two that we're going for. We have three of the Android 17s. Basically, he's just a one drop cantrip. You play him, draw a card. Now, he does have another ability that is limit one, that if he gets milled from the deck, you get to play him from the drop, and then you get a burst one. So excuse me, he does replace himself for the mill part, but when he gets played from that effect, he doesn't draw you a card. So basically, you get a free 5k combo, which sometimes actually isn't that bad. It just helps with the extra pressure, or you can use it for defense. Like I said, you do stay at a high life total, so sometimes you just use that as a combo piece, and you can stay as high life as long as you want, because even our super combos don't worry about life total. So the Gohan, he's from a previous set, so you might know what he does. But we're not using him for the vanilla effect for the extra draw. You could invest into that engine if you want, and it might be very helpful for playing like the Divine Presence Goku and everything. But I kind of stayed away from that package. We're just using him to top 5 search, either pick out your Unison or you're picking out any Universe 7 essentially. I think it's a 5 or less, but that's going to be most of your pieces anyway. And you can pick out your super combos. You can pick out whatever piece you really need for that turn. And then you're just going to combo them off. Again, keep your life total high. The other one drop we are running is Pearly Crown. Now, you can run them at 4. You will see that a lot of these cards are at high totals because, again, we're running a 60 card deck. But the thing is, you're going to mill a lot of these cards. So you want to keep a lot of these cards at a high total just to make sure that eventually you will draw and be able to use them. Typically, you might only see one Broly Crown and use it the whole game. Maybe you'll see 2, but you might mill out most of them. So we kept it at 3. You don't really want 4 because you do want to make sure you have those sparking abilities or the number of Universe 7s in your drop to be the right number in the early game. So you don't want to run too many non-Universe 7s. All right, up next is going to be the typical Universe 7 package for this deck. So we're going to max out on all of them. So 17, it is a 1 cost with this leader. It is a limit 1 on this, and same with the Frieza. These are going to be your turn 2 plays typically. There is another turn 2 play you could do, but if you want to play both of these, if you have them both, great. 17 is a Sparking 7 double strike. Turn 2, you have Sparking 7. And the reason why you can't play him turn 1 is because you need 5 Universe 7 in the drop in order to play him for 1. And you would have to be very, very lucky to do that by basically on your burst 3, you would have to hit 3 Universe 7 and then discard another for 4 and then maybe swing with your leader and combo another from your hand. So it's very unlikely, but it is possible to get him off turn 1. And the same effect with the Frieza. It's also limit 1 for 1 red. And you do need 5 Universe 7 in the drop to get them off. But typically, you're going to use them both on turn 2, especially because of the Sparking 7 part. If you play them on turn 1, you're not going to get dual attack or you're not going to get double strike. The other ability is for the 17. When he swings, you get to look at the top 3, pick any Universe 7, and it might be a 5 or less, or it might be no cost, I forget exactly. I think it's no cost restriction at all. You get to put it in your hand. And the other 2 cards you have to put on the bottom of the deck. So he filters a little bit more, and you plus out of that. And then you're already putting a 15k double strike pressure on turn 2. Frieza is a dual attack 19k, and when you play him, you get a minus something 15k. So the nice thing about this deck is you're going wide very quick, putting a lot of pressure, especially if you get both of these down. You're swinging with your leader, you're swinging with 2 19ks and a 15k double strike. They're either losing cards of their hand or they're losing field presence because you're minusing their field or killing their field or their unisons. It's really hard for opponents' early unisons to really stick with this deck. But you're putting a lot of pressure on early, so they're losing hand advantage or they're losing life really quickly. Another thing you could do for turn 2, turn 2, we have this Goku. He does have a limit 1 for the counterplay, but you can actually play him on your own turn outside of the counterplay as many times as you want. Now, he does get reduced to a 1 cost if your leader is a red Universe 7 card. And I'm not sure if it has to be a Goku, but it works for this leader. I think it's just a red Universe 7 card. And when he gets played, you get to choose one of your opponent's battle cards, minus a 15k. And if you happen to minus that card to 0, you also get to draw a card. So it's kind of nice, especially let's say turn 2, you want to play both of these two together, and maybe they have a 20k. You could kill the 20k right away, not even swing at it. And then if you do the Frieza first and then the Goku, you get an extra draw out of it. You can also save that energy open if you think they're going to play something that you want to minus right away. But remember, the counterplay is only once per turn with the limit 1. And then the Vegeta, he's a little bit more costly, but he's a 20k critical, which is really, really nice on that part. And he's also barrier removal. So when he gets played, you get not only get a draw card, you minus 2k's, 2 cards, 10k or 15k, and you ignore barrier with that. So he gets to replace himself. You're putting critical pressure. You're typically going to get him out turn 3. And this is where you really want to figure out when you want to awaken, because he does cost 2, and you do need Spark in 10. So turn 3, that's when that's really going to happen. So if you play him on turn 3, it's going to cost 2, but you will untap 1 and draw 1 on the awaken. All right, and this is the big boy finisher guy. This is our main finisher, and you're running him at 4. All your other cards are 5k combos, but he is a 10k combo. Running him at 4 is not too bad because you do want to see him. If you draw him too much, you could just discard him from the leader's front side, or you could just charge him. But I usually try to keep 1 in hand, and if you really have to later in the game, you can grab him back with a Sparking 20. But he is very, very strong. I forgot to mention the Vegeta also has Deflect, so he's definitely going to stick most of the time. And this guy also has Deflect, so it's pretty safe for how costly they are. He has a Sparking 20 ability, so you're not going to play him to turn 4, and you should have Sparking 20 by then, especially since you're probably awakened by turn 4. So you're going to be milling it twice. So you're milling 6 cards, actually 7 after the discard from the front side of the leader. So you're almost guaranteed to have Sparking 20 by this point when you do play him. He is a 4 cost, and your leader, I believe, has to be at Red Universe 7. And you need to have a certain number of Universe 7 in the drop area. I think it's 10 by the time you're playing him. You're going to definitely have that. And then you just can't play any more cards that are not red for the turn, which is, again, no problem in this deck because pretty much all the cards we're playing are red. But the nice thing is, with a Sparking 20, you get a look at their hand. So you got Broly Crown to look at their hand in the early game. You got this card to look at their hand in the late game. And this gets to pick more targets than the Broly Crown, because Broly Crown can only hit 20k or less. This is 7 costs and less. So sometimes, in some cases, I can even hit a secret rare. Most of the time, not. But it can hit. It doesn't even say battle cards. You can hit their negates out of their hand. If they have a floodgate, they're going to hit you with, or multiple floodgates, because they might hit you with the first floodgate after the first swing. You could just rip whatever you have to out of their hand. And that is a once per turn when he swings. He does have double strike and dual attack, and he's a big boy, so he's 35k. A lot of pressure, really, really, really early on. Again, turn 4, we're talking about a big board if they're not removing your board. You got 15k double strike, you got these 19k dual attacks, probably a 20k crit, and now a 35 double strike dual attack. So you're putting a lot of pressure on, and then you're making your opponent decide, hey, do I want to keep on swinging at the leader, or do I want to clear the board? A lot of times they're going to try to clear the board, which, again, makes your life total pretty high. So you can start taking life or taking hits late game, and it'd be no problem. All right, so our super combo is this card. It's a Sparkin 5. It's a Universe 7, so it helps with a lot of the effects. Sometimes you will not see too many super combos because you will end up nilling a lot of them. So a lot of times on my mulligan, if I see a super combo in the hand, I'll probably keep it. Or if I see it off of the Gohan, I'll keep that. If I see it off the 17, I'll try to grab that. So that way you can use as many of these super combos as possible. It's nothing special about the super combo. Again, it's just Sparking 5, draw 1. But again, you're adding all this pressure, and this sparking combo is going to be alive on turn 2. So again, awaken at 8 life if you want. You have your super combos available, and you don't. Most of the time, with your Sparking 20 from your leader ability, you will be grabbing probably this big boy or the secret rare that we'll see in a little bit. But in some cases, I have picked up super combos just because I knew I needed a little bit more push for that last attack, or maybe I might have picked up a dual attack just because if I knew they had no hand left and I need just one attack to go through. So you have a lot of choices with this deck, especially with that Sparking 20. All right, let's look at the rest of it. Um, Older card sport right here, Divine Presence, combo 2 red, comes in. He also has Deflect. So this deck has a lot of nice things because it has guys that can attack multiple times. We have a dual attacker here, dual attacker here, and then another one over here. So something like Hatchiak, you have guys that can swing multiple times per turn. Gives Sensu Bean to a card, essentially a 5k combo. If you run the vanillas with the Gohan, you could pick them out. So I'm not running those, but if you want to, that's more combo power you can get out of your deck. And then it's just the nice thing is when you play him, he's like a Unison killer a lot of the times. Or if they run a Majin Buu Unison or you're afraid of Frieza Charismatic, he's not going to get killed because not only does he have Deflect, Trunks can't hit him, but he can't be KO'd on your own turn. I've used him against like a Broly Surge, and this was like my finisher because I knew he wasn't going to die my turn. SSB Kaioken, more barrier removal just in case you need them. A lot of times you will not use them, but it is just good to have that barrier removal if possible. Between that and Vegeta, you have more than enough barrier removal, so you get rid of those annoying targets very easily, like Putine. You could get rid of that with Vegeta. Bigger guys like Slug might be easier with him, but even Vegeta minusing a Slug that's in rest mode, all you guys can just swing in a Slug, and they're probably not going to defend that. And Vegeta hitting 2 targets probably would even shut off Slug's bond effect. So you probably will still get the draw effect from the Vegeta and whatever else you want to draw from. We are running a Unison. You really don't have to run the Unison at all because it does make your turn 2 a little bit weird because of you got to decide, do I want to play these 2 guys on turn 2? Do I want to play just him and set up for the long game? Well, it really depends on what your strategy is. I like more options. If I know I need to go aggro, like maybe against a hand control, and I want to do as much pressure as soon as possible, I'll probably go with these 2. If I know it's going to be a long game, maybe like a Soul Striker deck, I'll probably want to play him, try to get my hand up, play the grindy game. He's really good against those blocker negates. You're going to pop them, or if they have riposts, you're going to pop them. So you're kind of making their advantage or their board state a lot harder to build up. You could also have the sweep in the board effect, but it'll be really hard to rejuvenate unless you stack another Piccolo Jr. underneath him. And with that, we have Yamcha. I feel like this is the worst card in the deck because it's really hard to have both of these in your hand or in the field at the same time. But it does come off sometimes, and it's just really nice to have that. Another thing is if you feel like that you're struggling getting or not getting enough Universe 7s in the drop, these can easily be cut from the deck, or again, you can replace them with a vanilla card. So that way it works with these 2. And then maybe the 17 that combos with the vanilla card get more draw power. So those are suggestions, but I do like having this option better. And this is just the best red Unison in the game, so why not use that? All right, now our negates. You want to run a lot of negates, again, because you're milling cards. You're not going to see all of them. If you happen to see them at the wrong time, you either discard them or you charge them. But After Image is like the best negate in this deck. It's almost always active, basically from turn 2 onwards, sometimes even turn 1. A lot of times they're going to go for your board because they know they have to deal with that. So sometimes you're just like, hey, I'm going to keep my board alive. Don't even have to worry about wasting much of your hand. And then you're even going to be popping their guys that they don't want popped. So After Image just overperforms in this, and it's almost always live. And since you're not overwhelming ever, you don't ever have to worry about this not being active. The only time it's not active is if you're tapped out and you have 1 life. Testing the opposition. Sometimes it's dead because a lot of times you end up with 7 or 8 life for a lot of the games. So It's good to have them, though, in those games that are going a little bit longer and you know you need to just survive another turn. And same with King Vegeta. You need 3 or less for the free effect, but again, it's better to have it than not. It's very rarely you're going to have all of these or multiple of these, so I like to have multiple options and just make sure I'm going to have at least 1 or 2 negates in hand instead of milling them all. And then for the last one, Koitsukai. Koitsukai is kind of weird at first because the leader effect says you cannot send cards from your drop to your orb. But Koitsukai actually says you are removing it from the game, so you can still use this card in this deck. You don't want to run them too high, unless you feel like maybe you want to side in more. You could always do that if you want. Um, but it's just, stopping those floodgates from coming in or punishing them if they do floodgate you. And then if you mill them, cool. That's great to use. Or if you want to discard them from the Goku's effect or just comboing them, great. Koitsukai is just great. Now, if the Secret Rare Death Planet doesn't have it out yet, you could use this Secret Rare, and it's not too bad. The only issue with this is it doesn't have Deflect. We should be using the Vegeta Secret Rare, and I will say Vegeta has won me most of my games. I want to say like probably 90% of my games, and the Vegeta Secret Rare is just nuts in this deck. It's almost always available because it's already in your hand, or you could just drop or pick it from the drop with a Sparking 20 anytime you want. I mean, you could do it as early as turn 4. A lot of times I'm probably doing it around turn 5, but because I'm adding so much pressure with all these cards up here, they're typically at 1 life, and then I just have to survive until the next turn. And if I'm at 7 or 8 life, all right, I don't even care. I'll take a few hits. So I'll play a few of these negates if I need to. I'll let my board get destroyed. I don't even care at that point because I'm basically guaranteed to win once they're at 1 life. I spark in 20. I play that. It's got deflect. So unless they got something that removes it, that it's a counterplay with an auto, it's going to stick. And then I've never even really swung with the Vegeta. There's only one game, and that was the game I lost against the Soul Striker that I actually lost when I played him, and that's because they did the Zamasu counterplay on it, and the counterplay effect didn't work on it, but they could rest it, so I wasn't able to swing, and I needed to actually swing in that game. But all the other games, I never even had to swing in Vegeta because I just used his activate main. Um, Essentially, if you don't know what Vegeta does, you pay for. I know Frank Castle's probably not going to like me saying that, but you do pay for it. It minuses the leader 10k. So again, you have a board. Minus at 5k. Their leader's susceptible unless they have a floodgate. And then you can swing at it. It has dual attack if you have Spark in 25. Very easy with this leader. And then he has triple strike. And then the last effect is it's an activate main. You remove him from the game, and then you remove all your opponent's board, all their battle cards, all their unisons, and then you also crit them a life. So most games, I don't even swing with them. I get them down to 1 very easily. I play him and burn him. I don't even have to swing with him, and that's game over right there. So this is the deck profile. Test out this leader. It's really, really fun. It's really, really strong. Here are some side deck options. I haven't tested the side, but these are what I'm thinking of. You got this Vegeta over here. I'm thinking mostly for like a Sin's Shenron matchup, just in case they have an effect that plays a bunch of guys at once and you want to deal with them all. It is pretty expensive though, but if you're expecting that turn to happen, like this 6 cost effect on the leader, you could keep those 3 open for that. And kill most of their board with that. And then you could also use this with a Yamcha on counter window 1, you use the Vegeta, counter window 2, you use the Yamcha. And that's pretty much going to deal with anything they play. If you're worried about mill, this guy is from, I think, like set 7. And when you combo with this card and your leader is red, you choose 1 card and discard it. But then you get to choose one of these effects. And if you're really worried about getting milled out, what you're going to do is you're going to choose 3 battle cards with an energy cost of 3 or more, which is most of your deck, and 35k or less. Again, pretty much everything but the Secret Rare. And then maybe like the Broly Crown and stuff. And you're going to put them on the bottom of the deck. So you get 3 more cards. But if you're worried about mill, you're running 60 cards, so it's really hard to get milled out. But you could just stop milling, and you could awaken really early if they start milling you early, and then as soon as you awaken, you could just stop milling yourself. So I'm not sure if that's a real concern yet, but This is an option if you're worried about that. This is probably against black decks. I would use this. This is almost like a death ball. What you're going to do is you're going to choose up. It does cost 1 red. Choose up to one of your cards. It gets plus 10k for the battle, and then you choose one of these two effects depending on whose turn it is. If it's your turn, choose one of their cards and it gets minus 30 for the turn. So we're talking about like SS3 thwarting the Dark Empire. You can get rid of that, or Demagra pretty easily with very little commitment. And if you use it on your defensive step, it gets to draw, so it replaces itself and then gets another 5k, so it becomes basically a 15k combo. So that's just an option. Similar to Death Ball, but Death Ball is probably better if you're going for game. This is more for just, slightly defense, but it's mostly for removing board. Deborah, I figured maybe hand control might be bad against this, but if you aggro them enough, it'd be no problem. Violent Rays, it's just a good one to have. But I don't know if we need more negates, but I just figured if there's some kind of glowing tall deck, maybe you might need that. And then this right here, Omen of Awakening, debating if I want to try to fit this in the main. We do want some counterplays in here. Just in case you have those floodgates, the one that we're probably most worried about is Oceanus, because you're already milling yourself out. And if they're playing that in the late game, basically a good game, So this will always create your life, but since your life is always so high, or most of the time so high, you don't have to worry about that. And it's going to hit pretty much every single floodgate there is, and it will cost 2, like Denial of Hope. But if you have a red Unison of 2 in play, which is your Piccolo Junior, it would only cost 1. So I want to run it at 3 just because I feel like I want to see at least 1, and if the others get milled out, I can at least hold on to that, um, just to stop those floodgates. Try the deck out. Let me know how you guys feel about it. I'll also put this in the description. Have a good one, everybody. Stay loco.